today we're talking about plyo balls. When I went from 78 to 96, and even now when I'm training to throw 100 miles an hour, plyo balls have played a major role in my training. So today we're gonna show you guys 10 of our most used plyo ball drills to increase pitching velocity over our careers. So the first one is double knee throws. And the reason why I like this is it just isolates the upper half. It totally takes out the lower half. So the only way you can produce velocity is through the trunk and the arm action. And it's really simple. You're just on two knees and basically you're throwing. And one of the big cues is you want to stay through the target and not spinning off like this. And so that's kind of what I'm focusing on this drill. And so with the two knee throws, you know, it's been shown that you can throw 80% of your max mound velocity off of your knees. And so if you're below that, like I am, you know, I'm only able to get up to 73, 74 miles an hour, which means there's a deficiency in my upper half. And so using this drill is gonna clean that up. And as I increase the velo, that's when I think I'm gonna get a really nice velocity bump. And so you can even do these on velo days to try to increase pitching velocity. Is really just to go here and then throw.
So the next one we're doing is the one knee throws. So this is really the same concept with the double knee throws, except you're gonna have a little bit more range and also that block in your front leg. But this is also promoting some separation as well because your pelvis is really locked towards the target, and then you're gonna be able to get more range back here with your arm. You're gonna be able to throw a little bit harder with these, but it's really keeping the same idea of cleaning up that upper half.
All right, so the third one that I really like is called the Tento Drill. And basically, you're just facing the target, you're turning and then throwing. So it's kind of similar to the double knee throw, but you're just on your feet. And so it allows for more range of motion. And a quick thing that I wanna touch on is with the weights of the balls. And so if you're using driveline plyo balls, which are pretty much one of the most common ones, we go from blue, red, yellow, gray. And each of these plyo balls have a pretty different purpose, which we'll get into in a little bit. But for now, let's dive into the Tento drill. So basically you're here facing the target, you're turning and then throwing. And again, you just wanna stay through the target and not be super rotational. And so right here, and then you throw. Again, this is just working on your upper half, making sure that the trunk, the spine, and the arm is able to produce the velo instead of relying on the linear momentum that the lower body creates. And one variation that I really like with this, to learn how to relax through your delivery and relax until the point of release, is the dead hang Tento drill. So basically you're just here, you're hanging, right? You're dead hang, you're super relaxed, and all you wanna do is get into a throwing position from here and then throw. And one of my favorite ways to actually challenge your ability to relax through the throw, especially on a drill like this, is to grab an underload ball, right? Because now you're trying to relax, relax. And with the underload ball, you need to be able to relax into positions to get into these deep positions. If you're tense, you're not going to be able to get into these layback or even these deep positions like you would with a heavier ball. And so with this drill, I really like using a lighter ball so that it teaches you to relax. You don't have to throw it hard. Just the biggest focus is just to feel relaxed until the point of release.
All right, the next one we're gonna talk about is like rotational step backs. So this one, we're incorporating our lower half too, but I think the biggest thing with this one is just having that rhythm and coordination that comes along with it. So the way it's gonna work is I'm just gonna start out facing the target, step back here, and then get ready, go. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to this one, but the first one's gonna be obviously step that left foot back if you're righty, and as you're coming back, you're bringing that right foot back, load, and then go. So obviously it's gonna take a couple tries to really get the hang of it, but that's really the point, is teaching that rhythm and coordination in the delivery. It's also naturally going to get you into your back leg The main thing that you really want to feel with these is just being as smooth as possible and not really thinking too much of how deep you need to get into your back leg or anything else really in the throw.
A natural progression from going from like the tentos into, you know, a little bit more closer to the delivery is a roll-in. This is one of my least favorite exercises, but it's one that I really need to focus on because it really focuses on how well your spine moves, right? So with the roll-in, you want to be facing toward your target. You're taking a step, and then what you need to do is create separation and then throw. So it looks something like this. So as soon as I'm taking that step, I'm counter rotating so that I'm creating that separation to be able to produce velocity. And so why this is a nice drill is because it teaches your spine to be able to get into these positions. If you're not able to create any separation and you're just right here, there's no way you're going to create any type of velo. Because one of the underlying principles of pitching mechanics is that no matter who you are, you do have to create hip to shoulder separation to throw hard. You need to create that torque. And so this warms your body up and kind of teaches it to really feel that separation and that torque before you go out to throw.
Okay, next one we got are janitor throws. So the purpose of these is really to think of staying closed off with your lower half. It's going to be tough to basically spin out open when we're going down. So trying to keep that left hip on that plate and the target as long as you can. The main goal of this is also to ride that down the slope as long as you can. So that left hip pointing towards the plate. And then at the very last second, that's when you rotate.
The next one is rockers. So there are a couple ways of actually doing this rocker drill. So the traditional way of doing it is just right here. You have a wide stance and then you rock back and forth and throw without lifting your leg. But what this can kind of cause is a bad lead leg block. If you're just rocking back and forth and throwing, it can be easy just to throw off a bad lead leg block. And so what I really like to do with this exercise is at least lift my front leg up a little bit. And so it'll kind of look like this, where now I'm actually rocking back and forth and I'm actually lifting my lead leg so that I can create that block and that lead leg block. But actually my favorite way of doing this is to do a rocker but with a leg lift. And so you're rocking back and forth right here, and then it's just a full leg lift into a throw. And the reason why I love that so much is because it teaches me how to control my center of mass. And so I would say there are two variations, two ways you can really do this well. If you're a guy who likes to drift and likes to get down the mound really quickly, then you can rock back and forth and create that drift right here and then pulse and get down the mound as quickly as you can. Or if you're a guy like me who needs a little bit more time, doesn't like to feel rushed down the mound, then you can have a little bit more weight on your back leg. And so you're rocking back and forth right here, back leg, and then throw. And the biggest thing there is that you don't want to rock back and completely rock back onto your back leg, because what that would create is right here, and now you're stuck. Right now you're stuck over the rubber. Now all you can do is go down, and it's like a drop drive delivery. That's not what we want. We want to get to that sweet spot to where you're still shifting your weight a little bit, but you're not feeling rushed, right? And so this is one of my favorite drills to really just teach this, is to get to that sweet spot. Okay, now go. And that's when you can create a lot of force, not only downwards, but forwards as well, because we need force production going forward. And so that's the rocker drill.
All right, so the next one we're doing is called the KiKuchi drill. So what we're trying to do here is as we're coming up, we're trying to be as light and free as possible. And we really want that momentum to take us up and then drop down. One key point is this: we don't want to create that upward movement artificially. So what I mean by that is I'm not trying to be tense and go up just with like a calf raise. I want to really feel my weight shifting up and then just drop down, just free. So it's gonna look a little bit like this where, so that's something where I'm gonna take all my momentum up, and then as I'm going down, I'm just letting gravity do its thing. Drop down. You should feel a little bit of a pulse in your whole throw, and that's when you know it's time to throw. So these are a little bit tricky, but I think it's good to start incorporating these to kind of start to understand, well, how you want to feel when you're dropping into the ground. All right, so the next drill we're doing is the Darvis drill. So this one, there's a couple things to it. One, it's obviously going to be a balance drill where you want to first see how well you can balance on one leg. And along with that is kind of being able to control your lead leg. So as we're coming down, I'm really turning it to where my pelvis is closed off. And as we're going down, I'm dropping into that back hip joint. And that's basically gonna lock your lower half as you go down the mound. So it's gonna look like this. So that's gonna do a lot of things just by kind of locking that back hip joint where our pelvis is gonna be closed off and our lower half is engaged. So if you're someone that's having trouble with really feeling your lower half or feeling your legs in the throw, this is a good throw because it really forces you to get into it.
All right, the last one is a drop step. It kind of looks like a pickoff. And so basically you have your back toward the target, and all you want to do is fire the hip first, and then the shoulders come along for the right. And so it'll look kind of like this. And basically what this is teaching you is to create the hip to shoulder separation, the pelvis to rib cage separation, right? And because you're right here, you need to fire your hips first. And so you're creating that separation before you throw. I also like this because you can increase the intensity. It's an athletic move. So it's a really good warm up for if you need to go out and throw at a high intensity. And so there's a couple ways of doing this. You can just do it short right here, more of a pickoff, feeling that separation. Or if you're using this to increase the intensity, athleticism, then you can really make it more of like a crow hop to where you're right here and throwing. And the last one is obviously we need to be able to convert all of these drills onto the mound and into our delivery. And so we've been doing all of this on the flat ground, but you can also do all of these off the mound if that's something that you wanted to do as well. But the last one is just the throw out of your delivery. And so a lot of these movements are molding your mechanics to be high velocity mechanics. And so just by doing them, it's gonna teach your body to get into good certain positions. For example, we ran through a bunch. You know, the dead hang tentos is teaching you to relax. The roll-ins, it's teaching your spine to get into separation. You know, the KiKuchi, it's teaching your back leg to feel that drop. You don't even have to really think, it's just kind of molding high velocity mechanics. And so what you wanna do at the end of your plyo ball routine is to just throw out of your delivery. And you don't have to think too consciously about this. These are more constraint drills, and so just by doing them, they'll actually help with your mechanics without you actually consciously thinking about it. And so just make sure you throw it out of your delivery to end it off. And lastly, with the weight of the plyo balls. So when you throw a heavier plyo ball, there's less stress on your arm, and you're able to get into deeper ranges of motion because the weight itself is going to pull your arm into, you know, deeper ranges of motion. It's easier to get into layback with a heavier weighted ball. And so it's a really, really good way to loosen up your whole arm, right? And so if you're starting off, I'd recommend starting off with a little bit of a heavier ball, you know, with the knee throws, with the tentos. Start off with the heavier ball so that you get loose and relaxed and your arm is actually getting stretched into these deep positions. Now, when you get into the lighter balls, you know, the 5 ounce, the 3.5 ounce balls, now this is pretty much challenging your body to be able to relax into these positions that you're getting into with the heavy ball. Now with the heavy ball, it's a way easier to get into these deep ranges of motion because of the weight is actually pulling you. But now it's light. It's not actually going to be pulling you into these deep positions. And so what you need to do is relax into these positions. And if you're not able to relax with something like a gray ball, which is an underload ball, then you're just not going to be able to create that kind of range. And so this is why I love throwing with the lighter ball as well, because it just teaches you really good patterns. And it's a lot more similar to a baseball than if you're throwing with a heavier ball. And so I would go from heavy to lightest. So if you're using driver line plyo balls, blue, red, yellow, gray, and end it off with this. Obviously you can throw this the hardest, and so you can get the intensity up to prime the central nervous system for when you go out and throw on the mound. So those are the 10 exercises that we've been using the most throughout our careers, and plyo balls have had a major impact in my velocity development throughout my career. And you can take some of these to incorporate into your routine as well if you're looking to increase pitching velocity.